Hey guys, it's Ryan with Mama on Mission, and today I'm going to share with you how we use Story of the World. This is part of a series that I started a while back and kind of dropped the ball on, but I'm going to continue on and hopefully wrap it up, where I talk about different curricula that we use and how we use it, and I give you an actual look inside the curricula, so in case you are considering using this or just curious about it, you can actually get kind of a feel for what it is. This is our third year doing Story of the World. We started it when my son was in first grade, and we did volume 2 then, and we started with volume 2 because our co-op at the time, it's still our co-op now, but at the time they were using Story of the World and they were on volume 2, so we just joined in with them. And then they have since stopped doing it, but we've just kept on going. So we did volume 2, volume 3, we're now on volume 4, and next year we'll loop back and do volume 1. So volume 4 is the modern age. This is the actual text. There's a few pictures here and there, but it's mostly just text and maps. And every chapter has 2 sections. So just an example, this is chapter 21, A Revolution Begins and the Great War Ends. And so the first part is the Russian Revolution, and then every chapter begins with a map that shows kind of the area you're talking about. And then the second section is the end of World War I. Sorry, my kids have their aunt over playing video games, so it's a little noisy out there. And so then oftentimes there's also a second map to go with the second part. And the sections of reading, the whole chapter would be kind of lengthy to read, but because it's divided up into sections, you can divide your reading up into sections. So we've done this multiple different ways. This year, how we are doing this is I bought the MP3. So on the Well Trained Minds website, you can buy and download the MP3 or the CD if you want the CD shipped to you instead, of this being read by Jim Wise, I believe it is. And he has, a good reading voice and everything, and it takes the reading off of you. If you're already someone who reads aloud a lot and don't want to do the reading, then that is an option. I already read aloud a lot to my kids, and we also have a 2-year-old who often needs my attention. So I did that to kind of take off some of the pressure of me having to read every day. So we used to do like a section every other day. Now we just make sure that we do history at least once, sometimes twice a week. And when we do it, we do the whole chapter, not just one section. So we kind of alternate back and forth between science and history. So when it's a history day, we just do the whole chapter instead of a section, because we just do a longer chunk of history and then a long chunk of science the next day. It just works better that way this year. So what happens is I will play the MP3, and we will stop it when the next section starts. So we'll listen to the first section and then pause it. Then we pull out our handy dandy, activity book. And at that point, we will turn to whatever the chapter is. So let's just use this one, chapter 28. And we will go to the review questions. So in this, I'll try to hold this up and see, it's kind of big. So at the beginning, you will see cross-references. If you want to look these up in either the Usborne Encyclopedia, or I can't remember what the other one is. Starts with a K. Anyway, it has the pages, so we can look those up in other books to kind of get more pictures and timelines and maps and things like that, which sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't. But we always do the review questions. So there's review questions that has the answers with it. So as soon as we finish reading a section, I'll pause the MP3 and ask my kids these questions. And my boys, just for a heads up, are, what grade are they in? First and third. And so this I have tailored more to their level. You could even make it a little easier for younger guys. I wouldn't go much younger than kindergarten. Actually, I wouldn't go younger than kindergarten, but that's just me. And you can probably, I would say, use this. I'd say you could even use it up to like 8th grade if you supplemented, like maybe wrote some papers and stuff, but I mean, that's up to you. We definitely plan on using this until at least 4th grade, maybe 5th or 6th. That's kind of what we're aiming for, but we'll see. So these questions, these review questions, at the age my kids are now, I kind of have to help them a little bit. They can answer some of them pretty easily. Some of them, I've got to kind of guide them to the right way of thinking to kind of get them to answer it correctly. After they answer those questions, then we will move on to the next section of reading and listen to it on the MP3. Then after that, we will skip down to the review questions for the second part and go through those. Well, then after we've gone through both of those, then we will have, we always go to our map work. And this, there are maps in the back. So they have one map for, typically, not always, they have a map for each section. Let's see if I can find my maps here. Okay, here's just an example. This is Hitler's Rise to Power. So you get kind of a basic blank outline map. And then in the map work section that I was just showing you, it has, let me see. It'll have a list of things. This one has 7 different things, and it'll tell you like how it corresponds. For example, Spain sent its army across the Strait of Gibraltar to stop the revolt. Find and label the Strait of Gibraltar on the map. So then you'll find and label it. And a lot of times with my younger boys, I'll tell them to do things in a certain color, just to make it more fun and just so that it's more visually clear what we're talking about. So then we'll do the map work for both sections, and then we'll go back, and under the review questions on each section there is an outline. And in the back of the book, here's a little outline down there. But in the back of the book there are blank outlines, and I think as my boys get a little older I will have them fill those out on their own. But for now I typically just do it on the whiteboard. I will just ask the leading questions of the outline, and they will give me the fill in the blanks, and we just kind of fill it out on the whiteboard just to kind of recap all that we've learned and condense it down into an outline. But then there's also at the end, oh wait, I skipped a part. There are also additional history reading suggestions and corresponding literature suggestions. So the additional history reading is going to be more of your nonfiction. So if you just want more information, right now we don't use too much of that unless I see some kind of like cool or really basic books. I don't want like, my kids aren't interested in reading like full-on biographies yet, so sometimes they'll put some really like heavy books in here that I think would be great for older ages, but not for my kids. But sometimes I'll find like those books, you wouldn't want to be a ... You wouldn't want to be a Civil War soldier. You wouldn't want to, you know, whatever, to correspond with this. And they're kind of humorous, but very informational about what it would be like to be in those times. So we'll read some like that sometimes if we can find them. But then the corresponding literature suggestions are typically fiction books, just related to that time period and that era, and that location where you are. A lot of them are picture books. Some of them are chapter books for your older kids. So we'll typically take a picture book from the library that corresponds with a chapter and read it as well. So after we've read, done the review questions, the map work, the outline, and any additional reading, if we have time, either that day or later in the week, we will do some of the projects. Now these projects can be super simple at times, and sometimes they are crazy detailed and require a lot of prep. But I know people who do this kind of cooperatively with other families. So instead of going like to a regular co-op, I know people who do this reading on their own and stuff, and then come together once a week or however often and do the projects together. And I think if you had a bigger group where you could kind of divide and conquer the work, you could do some really fun stuff. They have some great ideas in here. It's just some of them are too much for us. But sometimes they'll have recipes that we've tried. They'll have games, and typically if there's a game that requires like pieces and stuff, they'll have paper one. They'll have like a, what's that word I'm looking for? Like a template for you to make your own pieces and stuff. This says there's a math and logic puzzle. There's like acting out things. I mean, there's like so many different things. Sometimes you can design costumes. They have all sorts of ideas in here. And again, that this year is just kind of if we have time. So sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But that is basically how we do it. Some weeks we simply just get the reading and the questions done in our map work and call it good. Sometimes we do the whole outline and questions and look at the encyclopedia and pick out books from the library and do an activity. It just depends kind of how our week's going and how, you know, some of the bigger chapters, since my kids are still pretty young and still new to learning a lot of history, some of the chapters that are on, you know, things like the Holocaust and the Civil War, things that are really impactful, we will tend to do more things with those chapters. But that is what I love about Story of the World. It is so adaptable for, like I said, anywhere from kindergarten to even up to 8th grade, I would suggest. It's just in 8th grade, you might want to add a little bit to it. But definitely usable for all ages, and also very manageable with having a little bit of time or a lot of time, minimal effort or lots of effort. I mean, it's very adaptable to whatever you are looking for. And I do like that it is a chronological view of history, so it's not like, oh, this is just British history, this is just American history. No, this is like world history chronologically. It's not geographic, which I really, 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 really love because it helps me. History, I was just like get the facts in my brain, spit them out on a test, and then be done, girl. But this, the way it's written, makes it stick in my brain a lot more because you can think, okay, this was going on in America. Well, while this was happening in America, here's what's happening in China, or here's what's happening in Germany, or wherever. And it makes history make a lot more sense for me, even as an adult. So I highly recommend this. If you have any more questions, please drop them below and I'd be glad to answer them. I thank you so much for watching, noise and all, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.